The war in Ukraine continues to gradually slip off the international radar as the global audience, media and governments are turning their attention to the Middle East. But the Russian aggression on Ukraine is far from over, as Putin has ordered his troops back onto the offensive to recapture the strategic momentum on the battlefield. Meanwhile, Ukraine is trying to respond with long-range strikes and launching an offensive of its own on the left bank of the Dnipro. It has been an eventful second fortnight of October, which we will describe in this video. This video is made possible thanks to the generous support of our YouTube members and patrons. Their contributions are the backbone of our work. As a token of our appreciation, our patrons and YouTube members enjoy 2 exclusive videos every week. Currently, they have access to a complete series on Xenophon's Anabasis, the First Punic War, History of Prussia, Italian Unification Wars, Risorgimento, and numerous other fun videos. Additionally, our Pacific War series is ongoing, and we're excited to announce the release of a new series on the Russo-Japanese War and Albigensian Crusades, and much more, exclusively for our backers. If you want to join this fantastic community, you can find the links in the video description and pinned comment. By becoming a patron or YouTube member, you'll gain access to exclusive videos, early access to all our public content, release schedules, wallpapers, and an invitation to our active Discord server where we engage in lively discussions. Your support is invaluable, and we sincerely thank you for making our work possible. Russia continued to focus its offensive operations in the Avdiivka sector during this period. The first assault was conducted on October 10th to 14th, but the Ukrainians repelled it, inflicting huge losses on the Russian army. The 114th Motor Rifle Brigade was the leading force in the initial offensive, but due to heavy losses it was later reinforced with the 15th, 21st and 30th Motor Rifle Brigades. On October 19th, the Russian army made another attempt to break through the Ukrainian defences. After launching a massive barrage of artillery fire and airstrikes on the Ukrainian strongholds in Avdiivka, the Russians attacked in both the north and south to continue their envelopment movement. Ukrainian sources described the Russian tactics in the Avdiivka section as follows: 10 tanks, armoured personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles are sent to the battlefield. 2 to 3 of them are destroyed by the Ukrainian artillery on the way. The infantry gets out of the vehicles, the remaining vehicles go back. They do it every half hour until they make gains or return to their initial lines to give it another try the next day. The Russian command sends in its Storm Z units, consisting of inmates, as an expendable first-line forward unit, a repeat of the costly Wagner tactic successfully used in the Battle of Bakhmut. This allows the Russian army to preserve its more skilled and experienced troops and to send them when a breakthrough happens. The October 19th assault was another failure for the Russian army, which suffered more losses at the hands of the 110th Mechanized Brigade and other units defending the northern section of Avdiivka. According to the Ukrainian military correspondent Yuri Butizov, massive armoured losses suffered by the Russian army in the Avdiivka section forced them to bring in more reserves from the 106th Airborne Division and separate tank battalions, along with the Pyatnashka Special Forces Brigade. On October 22nd, Russia launched 5 attacks on the northern flank of Avdiivka and reached a narrow section of the railway line, along with gaining ground towards the Terrakon, some important high ground in this section, which eventually forced the Ukrainian units on the Terrakon to withdraw, turning it into a grey zone not controlled by either of the sides. Almost simultaneously, the Russian 9th, 55th and 110th Brigades have been trying to break through the defence of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade on the Vodyana-Opytna line, gaining minor ground in the process. Russian sources reported a Ukrainian counterattack towards Pisky in this section on October 22nd, but it seems it has not changed the situation on the ground much. On October 25th, the Russians launched another assault from Krasnohorivka in the north of Avdiivka and expanded the area of its control along the railway, and according to Russian sources, captured the Terrakon, although we are yet to see video proof. There have been a few more attacks to gain a foothold in the Avdiivka coke plant, but as of late October, all of them have been repelled. The Ukrainian situation in the Avdiivka section is by no means catastrophic, and they have been inflicting massive losses on the Russian army in this area. Still, the Russians have continued gaining ground, despite these losses, by simply overwhelming Ukrainian defenders with increased artillery shelling and armoured attacks. Evidently, the Russian command feels that it can tolerate these losses, as despite losing thousands of pieces of equipment, Russia still has a lot more weapons, vehicles and equipment to keep attacking the same places over and over again until they capture them. To compare, Ukraine does not have this luxury, as the more minor armoured losses it suffered on the first days of the Zaporizhia counter-offensive forced them to rethink its tactics. Russia will continue attacking Stepova, Berdichi, the coke plant and Severna to cut all the Ukrainian supply lines into Avdiivka, and the situation remains problematic for Ukraine. A potentially significant situation has been developing along the Dnipro. For months, the sides have been exchanging regular artillery fire, while the Ukrainians have been raiding islands of the river delta, along with sections of the left bank. Ukraine has been in control of a small area on the left bank near the Antonivskyi bridge for a while now, but it is not a promising area for a functioning bridgehead due to the terrain. On October 17th, the AFU intensified its attempts to create a bridgehead on the left bank. Several assault groups of the 35th and the 36th Naval Infantry Brigades landed there and immediately captured the village of Poima and gained ground inside the village of Pischanivka. According to Russian sources, this attempt was eventually defeated, but on October 19th, Ukraine gained another foothold on the left bank. Territorial defense forces overwhelmed the Russian troops near Krinky, allowing the 35th Naval Infantry Brigade to deploy and gain control of the village. As of late October, the Ukrainian bridgehead in Krinky still exists, and they have even expanded the area of control, managing to bring more troops to the left bank. So far, there is no indication that Ukraine has been able to bring vehicles and equipment to its troops on the left bank, and they have only been supported by artillery firing from the right bank. The Russians are still fighting to destroy the Ukrainian bridgehead. Even if Ukraine succeeds in creating a sustainable bridgehead, we should not expect a lightning-quick advance in this area, since Russia has been building defensive structures on the Kherson front as well, and is probably sending reinforcements to this area as we speak. Russia has no shortage of troops in Ukraine, since, according to the Ukrainian military intelligence official Andriy Yusov, Russia has more than 400,000 soldiers in Ukraine. On the other hand, it is a potentially risky situation. A Ukrainian bridgehead would force the Russians to divert reserves from other fronts, harming their offensive potential in the Avdiivka section and Luhansk front, and their defensive potential on the Zaporizhia front and around Bakhmut. According to Russian sources, the Russian command has dismissed the commander of the Dnipro area and appointed the VDV commander, Mikhail Teplinsky, who is considered a respected and capable commander in the Russian military. If true, it means that the Russian command is not happy with the performance of its troops along the Dnipro and recognizes the risk of the Ukrainian breakthrough on this front. On the Zaporizhia and North Luhansk fronts, the status quo persisted. Heavy fighting continues in the Robotyne salient, but neither side has achieved any important gains in this period. On the North Luhansk front, the Russian offensive has largely fizzled out. They have made small gains in the Serebryansky forest area, but have lost ground to the Ukrainians near Sinkivka and Olyanska. But perhaps the most notable event of the second half of October was that Ukraine finally got its ATACMS long-range missiles. After months and months of negotiations and stalling, the United States secretly provided the oldest version of ATACMS with a range of only 165 kilometers, containing hundreds of bomblets. The Western media has claimed anywhere between less than a dozen to 20 missiles being given to Ukraine. If true, that is an astonishingly low number, which is not going to have a major impact on the war. Perhaps the United States will give more, and Germany will finally agree to send its Taurus long-range missiles after seeing the impact ATACMS had the first time the Ukrainians used it, catching the Russians unprepared. On October 17th, Ukraine launched several ATACMS missiles on Berdyansk and Luhansk airfields, which destroyed at least 7 Ka-52 attack helicopters and 2 Mi-8 helicopters, and damaged another 8 Ka-52s and 7 Mi-8s. This was the biggest damage the Russian Air Force has suffered since the start of the war, possibly since the end of World War II. It will likely force the Russians to station its fighters and helicopters further away from the ATACMS range, which will decrease their effectiveness. A few months earlier, the Ukrainian military intelligence chief Kyrylo Budinov argued that Ukraine would need hundreds of ATACMS missiles to have a genuine impact on the war. Obviously, ATACMS is not some sort of Wunderwaffe, just like HIMARS or F-16s are not. None of the weapons, tanks, jets or missiles are going to single-handedly win the war for Ukraine, but every weapon that Ukraine gets helps them in the war of attrition currently waged by Russia. More ATACMS means more destroyed Russian assets, and further disruption of Russian logistics. The Ukrainian people will be happy to hear about the Biden administration's intention to ask Congress for $60 billion to aid Ukraine. On October 20th, Biden once again reiterated the American intention to continue supporting Ukraine, but the level of the US military aid to Ukraine in October suggests otherwise, as the Biden administration is struggling with keeping the far right in the US Congress in the fold with regards to Ukraine support. According to the Ukraine Battle Map profile on Twitter, the level of American military aid to Ukraine in October was 93.5% less in comparison with the first half of 2023. The only military aid package pledged by the USA in the second half of October to Ukraine was worth $150 million, which included NASAMS and HIMARS munitions, small arms, AIM-9M and Stinger missiles, and Javelin anti-tank guns, among other things. The United States has also finalized the delivery of all 31 promised M1 Abrams tanks. Let's look at other reports on foreign military aid to Ukraine. On October 18th, the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba stated that Kyiv has signed contracts with 59 companies from 23 countries on the production of weapons for Ukraine, which is consistent with the earlier observation of Ukraine's intention to ramp up domestic military production in order to decrease its dependence on foreign aid. The statement from the US Secretary of Defense William LaPlante regarding the beginning to pivot to rebuilding or building an industrial base inside Ukraine should be seen in the same light. On October 19th, Croatia promised to send all 14 of its Mi-8 helicopters to Ukraine. On October 24th, Germany announced a military aid package worth €1.4 billion, consisting of 3 additional Gepard anti-aircraft guns, 40 RQ-35 Hydron and Vector recon drones, a Biber bridge-laying system, 3 HX-81 tank recovery vehicles, 13 border patrol vehicles, and 155mm smoke shells, along with €200 million to support the Ukrainian economy. On October 25th, Australia sent demining equipment, portable X-ray machines, a 3D metal printer, and counter-drone systems worth $20 million. On October 26th, Denmark announced a military aid package worth $522 million, consisting of T-72 tanks, BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicles, artillery shells, drones, small arms, and engineering vehicles. There have also been reports about the US intention to send the so-called Frankensam air defense systems, a hybrid between American and Soviet systems to help Ukraine withstand the expected winter campaign of Russian aerial attacks on the Ukrainians' critical infrastructure. The most baffling and frustrating development for Ukraine regarding the military aid from its Western partners was the Bloomberg report claiming that the European Union has completed only 30% of its plan to deliver artillery shells to Ukraine, which are crucial in the ongoing war of attrition. The EU is significantly behind schedule, and according to the Lithuanian foreign minister, it has delivered only 300,000 shells, while North Korea has already delivered 350,000 to Russia. It is another example of many EU countries acting without any sense of urgency in the face of a strategic threat from Russia. The somber Time magazine story on President Zelensky gives a peek at the current level of frustration in the Ukrainian leadership regarding the Western military aid. Zelensky complained of Ukraine fatigue among Western elites. Exhaustion with the war rolls along like a wave. You see it in the United States and in Europe, and we see that as soon as they start to get a little tired, it becomes like a show to them. I can't watch this rerun for the 10th time. The article also talks about the inability of Ukrainian units to go on an offensive simply due to the lack of weapons. Some have dismissed this article due to its author Simon Schuster's previous takes about Ukraine and have questioned his neutrality. But some of the points reflected in the story are consistent with reports from Western media outlets, such as the dissatisfaction of some in Western governments with the level of corruption in Ukraine. This is not to say that Ukraine's allies are to blame for all the problems Ukraine has experienced on the battlefield, not at all. Their military, financial, political, and intelligence support has been invaluable for Ukraine, keeping it in the fight against the Russian army, which has adapted well to the challenges it faced earlier in the war, and still has huge reserves to keep the war going. The Ukrainian army failed to succeed in its counter-offensive in Zaporizhia, and some questions can be asked from the Ukrainian military command about the tactics it employed, and whether defending Bakhmut until the end was prudent due to the losses that the AFU suffered there. The Ukrainian government can be criticized for its inability to solve the issue of corruption that has been hurting this country for decades. But this should not absolve Western countries of blame for not delivering on their pledges, and still having a rather casual peacetime mentality despite facing an obvious strategic threat from the Kremlin. The bloody and unprovoked invasion of Ukraine by Putin has been going on for more than 20 months. The biggest war in Europe since World War II has turned into a war of attrition yet again. Ukraine will be looking to prevent the Russian army from securing Avdiivka, expanding its operations on the left bank of the Dnipro, ramping up domestic military production, and persuading its allies to give more vital aid. Putin will seek to maintain domestic stability while sending more men and resources to fight his aggressive war of conquest in Ukraine in the long term, and prevail in the war of attrition. In the end, as always, let's look at the visually confirmed losses brought to you by the Oryx blog. As of October 31st, Russia has lost at least 2,438 tanks, 4,975 vehicles, 254 command posts and communication stations, 1,022 artillery systems and vehicles, 300 multiple rocket launchers, 93 aircraft, 132 helicopters, and 317 drones. Ukraine has lost at least 682 tanks, 2,128 vehicles, 18 command posts and communication stations, 424 artillery systems and vehicles, 49 multiple rocket launchers, 77 aircraft, 37 helicopters, and 215 drones. More videos on this topic are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and press the bell button. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Recently we have started releasing weekly Patreon and YouTube member exclusive content. Consider joining their ranks via the link in the description or button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.